Don't make this weird, Ryan whispered at 2:17 in the morning, which was an unreasonable thing to say when two men who could barely survive a staff meeting together were lying 6 inches apart in the same hotel bed. I stared at the ceiling and tried to remember every decision that had brought me here. The canceled flight, the snowstorm, the last available hotel room, the single king-size bed, and, most importantly, my spectacular failure to insist on sleeping in the airport like a sensible adult. Beside me, Ryan Callahan shifted slightly, and the mattress dipped beneath his weight. That tiny movement somehow felt louder than the heater humming beneath the window. "I'm not making anything weird," I said. "You built a wall out of pillows. That's called establishing an international border. You used 3 pillows. National security is expensive." Ryan laughed quietly. I hated that laugh. More specifically, I hated that I liked that laugh, which was considerably worse. In the darkness, the Ryan I knew from work seemed to have disappeared. There was no perfectly pressed button down, no conference room confidence, no irritating expression that said he already knew the answer before anyone else finished asking the question. There was only Ryan beside me, tired and strangely quiet, illuminated by the pale blue glow leaking through the curtains from the hotel sign outside. 1 pillow separated us now. There had originally been 3, but apparently my border security had experienced catastrophic structural failure sometime after midnight. I considered rebuilding it. I did not move. "Ethan," Ryan said. His voice had changed. The humor was gone. I turned my head. He was already looking at me. That was mistake number 412 of the evening. Ryan had blue eyes that were annoying under fluorescent office lights and significantly more dangerous at 2 in the morning. I swallowed. "What?" He hesitated. Ryan Callahan never hesitated. I had watched this man present an unfinished campaign to 12 executives after the projector died, and he hadn't even blinked. Now he looked almost nervous. "There's something I should have told you months ago." Every sarcastic response in my brain suddenly missed its flight. That sounds ominous. It's not. People only say that immediately before saying something ominous. His mouth twitched, but he didn't laugh this time. Outside, wind brushed snow against the window in soft bursts. The room felt smaller than it had 30 seconds earlier. Ryan looked down at the pillow between us, then back at me. "Do you remember that presentation last spring?" Of course I remembered it. I remembered standing in front of our creative team while Ryan dismantled my campaign idea with 3 calm sentences and 1 raised eyebrow. I remembered deciding, right there, that Ryan Callahan was the most infuriating man in Boston. Unfortunately, he took a slow breath. "Ethan, what you think happened that day isn't what happened." I frowned. I was there. So was I. Something in his expression stopped my next joke before it formed. Ryan wasn't teasing me. He wasn't competing with me. For once, he looked like he was trying to find the courage to say something he couldn't take back. "Then tell me," I said. His eyes held mine. "I will." He paused. "But you need to understand why I did it first. 6 hours earlier, I still thought Ryan Callahan hated me. By sunrise, I was going to discover just how wrong I'd been. 6 hours earlier, I was still living under the comforting illusion that my biggest problem was surviving another 10 minutes beside Ryan Callahan. We had just finished a 3-day client meeting in Chicago, and after approximately 27 hours of presentations, revisions, polite smiling, and Ryan saying things like, "Let us reconsider the objective," when he really meant, "Ethan, your idea needs work," I was ready to return to Boston and avoid him until Monday, possibly Tuesday. I was standing near our gate with a paper cup of airport coffee that tasted vaguely like burnt cardboard when Ryan appeared beside me. "You know that is decaf, right?" he asked. I looked at the cup, then at him. "Why would you tell me something this cruel?" "Because you have been complaining about being tired for 20 minutes. I have been awake since 5:30 this morning. You also stayed up. Until 1 watching cooking videos." I slowly lowered my coffee. "How do you know that?" Ryan glanced at his phone. "You sent me a link at 12:47. Right." Apparently exhaustion had temporarily erased my memory and dignity. That was work-related research. It was a video about a man making a 6-pound grilled cheese sandwich. Brand inspiration comes from unexpected places. His mouth curved into that restrained smile that irritated me mostly because I always noticed it. Before I could defend myself further, the departure board flickered. Our flight changed from delayed to canceled. For 3 full seconds, nobody moved. Then half the terminal seemed to reach for their phones simultaneously. No, I whispered. Ryan looked at the board. That appears fairly definitive. Thank you, Ryan. Without your professional interpretation, I might have assumed canceled meant surprise vacation. Snow streaked across the windows beyond the gate, turning the runway lights into blurry yellow dots. The airline announced that the next available Boston flight would not leave until morning. Around us, passengers began calling hotels. I immediately opened every travel application on my phone. Sold out, sold out, sold out. One hotel offered a room for $900, which I assumed came with either a private chef or ownership of the building. Anything? Ryan asked. Yes. I found several excellent opportunities to sleep upright beneath fluorescent lighting. He leaned against the seat beside me and started searching his own phone. I watched him for a second longer than necessary. Ryan was always calm. It was deeply suspicious. His dark blonde hair was slightly messy from a full day of travel, but somehow even exhaustion seemed professionally organized on him. You can stop looking, I said. I have accepted my fate. I will become an airport person. By morning, I will know every employee by name. Ryan ignored me. His thumb moved across the screen, then stopped. Found one. I blinked. A room? Near the airport. Their shuttle leaves in 15 minutes. Relief arrived so quickly that I nearly hugged him, which would have created paperwork for both of us. I grabbed my suitcase instead. Callahan, for the next 12 hours, I am willing to downgrade you from unbearable to moderately useful. I am honored. We hurried through the terminal toward the shuttle pickup while snow gathered beyond the glass doors. I should have asked one more question. I should have wondered why every other hotel was full while this one still had space. Instead, I followed Ryan into the freezing midnight air, completely unaware that the room he had found came with exactly one problem. One very large, very unavoidable problem. The hotel lobby looked exactly like the kind of place people found at midnight during a snowstorm. Warm, crowded, and operating on the emotional stability of a vending machine. Travelers occupied every chair. Suitcases lined the walls. Somewhere near the elevators, a toddler was explaining very loudly that he did not believe in bedtime. I respected his position. Ryan approached the front desk while I guarded our luggage and tried to restore circulation to my fingers after the shuttle ride. 5 minutes later, he returned holding one keycard envelope. Good news, he said. I immediately distrust that phrase. We have a room. That is genuinely good news. Ryan hesitated. There it was. The hesitation. What? I asked. There is one bed. I stared at him. One bed. A king-size bed. Adding the dimensions does not improve the situation. It is approximately 6 feet, 4 inches wide. Why do you know that? I looked it up. Of course he had. Ryan probably researched mattress specifications recreationally. I glanced toward the lobby. Every couch was occupied. Outside, snow swept sideways beneath the parking lot lights. Ask for another room. I did. 2 smaller beds. No. A rollaway? Fire code. A couch. There is a chair. I narrowed my eyes. How comfortable. It appears emotionally supportive, but structurally questionable. I hated when he was funny. It complicated things. I can go back to the airport. Ryan picked up his suitcase. Miller, it is a mattress. I am not proposing. Good. Because your delivery needs work. We rode the elevator to the 4th floor in silence, except for the soft instrumental. Music that seemed determined to make our situation feel romantic against my will. Room 417 waited at the end of the hallway. Ryan opened the door. I stepped inside, saw the bed, and stopped. It was enormous. It was also unmistakably singular. Wow, I said. There it is. Excellent observation. I am processing. Ryan set his suitcase beside the dresser. Take whichever side you want. That sounds suspiciously reasonable. Would you prefer a territorial dispute? Maybe. I understand conflict. Generosity from you is unsettling. Ryan looked at me for a moment, and something in his expression softened before disappearing. Window side or bathroom side, Ethan? The use of my first name caught me strangely off guard. At work, I was usually Miller. Window. Done. That was it. No argument. No sarcastic victory speech. He simply took the other side. I sat on the edge of the mattress and tested the distance between us with my eyes. Plenty of room. Completely normal. 2 adult coworkers could share one enormous bed without civilization collapsing. Then Ryan opened his suitcase and pulled out a phone charger. Here. I frowned. What? Your battery was at 12% on the shuttle. I checked my phone. 11%. How did you notice that? You complained loudly. That is not an answer. Ryan plugged the charger into the outlet on my side before returning to his suitcase. I watched him, suddenly aware of a question I had never thought to ask. Ryan noticed things about me. Small things. Specific things. I did not know why that bothered me more than sharing a bed. 10 minutes later, I placed 3 pillows in a straight line down the center of the mattress. Ryan emerged from the bathroom, stopped, and stared at my construction. Is that a wall? A boundary? You know I offered you half the bed. And I am protecting my half. Ryan shook his head, smiling as he switched off the lamp. Good night, Ethan. I settled beneath the blanket, staring into the darkness. Good night. Then, after several quiet seconds, Ryan reached toward the thermostat without looking at me and lowered it exactly 3 degrees. You sleep better when the room is cold, he said. My eyes opened. I had never told him that. I stayed awake for exactly 43 seconds before curiosity defeated common sense. How do you know that? I asked. Ryan was already lying on his side, facing away from me. Know what? That I sleep better when it is cold. You mentioned it once. When? Silence. Ryan. He sighed. Denver. I searched my memory. We had attended a conference in Denver 7 months earlier, along with 14 other people from the agency. I remembered bad coffee, an aggressively cheerful keynote speaker, and spending 3 days pretending Ryan did not irritate me. I do not remember telling you anything about sleeping. You complained at breakfast because your hotel room was 74 degrees. I turned toward the pillow wall. You remember the exact temperature? Apparently. That is weird. You remember that I hate cilantro. I opened my mouth. Closed it. Annoyingly valid. That is different. Naturally. You gave a 10-minute speech about cilantro ruining tacos. It does ruin tacos. You called it hostile parsley. Ryan laughed into his pillow. I smiled before remembering I was supposed to be suspicious. Still weird, I muttered. Go to sleep, Ethan. I almost did. Then the room went completely dark. The heater stopped. The digital clock vanished. Even the faint hum of the mini refrigerator disappeared, leaving the room so quiet that the wind outside suddenly sounded much closer. Please tell me you did not do that, I said. Yes, Ethan. I personally disconnected the hotel from the electrical grid because our evening lacked inconvenience. I knew it. Ryan reached for his phone and switched on the flashlight. A pale circle of light moved across the ceiling. Somewhere in the hallway, several doors opened and voices murmured. A minute later, the hotel sent a message saying the outage was temporary. Great, I said. Now we are trapped in a dark room with 1 bed. You still have your international border. I touched the nearest pillow. For now, Ryan propped himself against the headboard. With no television, no heater, and no convenient excuse to look anywhere else, silence settled between us. It was different from office silence. Softer. Less defensive. Can I ask you something? Ryan said. That depends entirely on whether I can lie. Why do you dislike me so much? I stared toward the dark window. There were several possible answers. His impossible calm. His habit of correcting details. The way he walked into meetings looking prepared enough to survive a congressional hearing. But those were symptoms, not the reason. The presentation last spring, I said finally. Ryan became still. What about it? You really have to ask? I want to hear your version. That word caught me. Version. My version is what happened. I presented the campaign. Marshall questioned the strategy. Then you jumped in and explained everything that was wrong with it before I could defend myself. That is what you think I was doing. I was standing 3 feet away, Ryan. He lowered his phone, leaving only dim light reflected from the snowy parking lot outside. Marshall was not questioning the strategy. I heard him. No, you heard the polite version. Something tightened in my chest. Ryan continued more quietly. He wanted you removed from the account. I sat up. What? Before that meeting, he had already decided. For once, I had no joke ready. Then why did you criticize my proposal in front of everyone? Ryan looked at me across the ridiculous line of pillows. His expression was unreadable in the darkness. Because if I could convince him the idea needed revision instead of replacement, he had no reason to replace the person who created it. The room seemed suddenly too quiet. You expect me to believe you were helping me? No, Ryan said. I expect you to realize there are things about that day you never knew. I stared at him. Like what? His eyes held mine. Like what happened after you left the room? What happened after I left? I asked. Ryan did not answer immediately, which was becoming an irritating habit for a man who normally treated silence like wasted meeting time. The snow beyond the window reflected enough parking lot light to outline his face. Marshall wanted someone else leading the account, Ryan said. Someone senior. I pulled the blanket higher against the cooling room. That part one gathered. He thought your campaign was too risky. I told him safe was exactly why the previous campaign had failed. I blinked. You said that. Among other things. What other things? Ryan looked toward the window. I told him removing you would be a mistake. Something inside me shifted, small but unmistakable. For 8 months, I had replayed that meeting whenever Ryan annoyed me, filing it under evidence that Ryan Callahan was professionally engineered to make my life difficult. Now someone had apparently replaced the evidence while I was not looking. Why did nobody tell me? Because Marshall changed his mind. You stayed. The campaign worked. There was nothing to tell. There was absolutely something to tell. You let me think you humiliated me. Ryan gave me a tired look. You never asked. I stopped speaking to you unless legally required. I noticed. And you never thought to explain? You had already decided who I was. That landed harder than I wanted it to. I looked away. The room had grown colder without the heater, but embarrassment warmed my face just fine. You could have corrected me. Would you have believed me? I wanted to say yes. Unfortunately, honesty arrived first. Probably not. Exactly. I hated when he was right. Worse, I hated how little satisfaction he seemed to take from it. Ryan was not smiling. He was not collecting points. He just looked tired. So, all those revisions you sent me afterward? I asked. Were revisions? The notes at 2 in the morning? You were working at 2 in the morning. You were also working at 2 in the morning. Someone had to make sure you remembered commas existed. I stared at him. There he is. I was worried reasonable Ryan had replaced you permanently. A quiet laugh escaped him, and some of the tension loosened. Then the emergency lights in the hallway flickered through the gap beneath our door. Still no heater. I rubbed my hands together. Ryan noticed immediately. Of course he did. Cold. No. Your teeth nearly filed a noise complaint. I am adapting. Ryan reached for the extra blanket folded near his feet and handed it across the pillow wall. Take this. Then you will be cold. I am fine. That is exactly what cold people say before becoming colder. He gave me the blanket anyway. Our fingers brushed for less than a second. Nothing dramatic happened. No music appeared from nowhere. The universe did not send a memo. Still, I pulled my hand back a little too quickly. Ryan noticed that too, but mercifully said nothing. I unfolded the blanket. Thank you. You are welcome. Another silence settled between us. Only now it felt different. The man beside me had apparently defended my job, remembered my hotel preferences, monitored my phone battery, and listened closely enough to remember things I had forgotten saying. That created a deeply inconvenient question. Ryan. Yeah. Why do you notice so much about me? His expression changed. Barely, but I saw it. You really want to know? He asked. Suddenly I was not sure. I nodded anyway. Ryan looked at the remaining pillows between us, then back at me. That answer is more complicated than the presentation. Complicated how? I asked. Ryan stared at me for a second, then leaned back against the headboard. You ask questions when you are nervous. I ask questions because normal people answer them. You also make jokes when you are nervous. I make jokes because I am delightful. And humble. Exceptionally. His smile appeared again, small and almost reluctant, and somehow that made the room feel less cold. I waited for his complicated answer. Instead, Ryan glanced toward the dark thermostat. The temperature is dropping. Excellent diversion. That was not a diversion. It had all the characteristics of one. I checked my phone. The hotel had sent another message saying maintenance expected the power to return soon. Soon was not a unit of time I trusted. The room had probably fallen below 60 degrees, and the window was beginning to collect a thin haze along its edges. Ryan pulled the blanket higher. Move closer to the middle. I looked at him. Absolutely not. Ethan, there is a pillow wall. A respected sovereign border. You are shivering on principle. Principles built this country. Ryan closed his eyes briefly. Fine. Freeze. Patriotically. 5 minutes later, I moved 3 inches toward the middle. Purely for survival. Another 5 minutes passed. 3 more inches. Ryan said nothing, which somehow made it worse. If you comment on this migration, I am going back to the airport. I did not say anything. Your silence is smug. My silence is literally silence. I adjusted the blanket and accidentally knocked one of the pillows onto the floor. We both looked at the empty space it left. Border breach, Ryan said. Temporary infrastructure failure. I reached for the pillow, but the mattress shifted beneath me and my hand landed against his instead. Warm fingers. Brief contact. I stopped. Ryan stopped too. Neither of us moved for one strange second. Then two. I pulled my hand away and cleared my throat. Your side is invading mine. Your hand crossed the border. There will be an investigation. Ryan laughed softly, but he did not replace the fallen pillow. Neither did I. The distance between us was smaller now. Not dramatic. Maybe a foot. Still, I noticed everything I had been successfully ignoring. The steady rhythm of his breathing, the quiet rustle of the blanket when he moved, the way his voice became softer when he was tired. This was terrible. I preferred Ryan when he was an irritating collection of dress shirts and opinions. That Ryan was easy to dislike. This one remembered that I hated warm hotel rooms and handed me blankets without making a performance of it. Why are you being nice to me? I asked. Ryan turned his head. What? Tonight. The charger. The blanket. The room. Everything. You needed those things. That is not an explanation. Maybe it is. I studied his face in the dim light. You know, for someone who gives presentations for a living, you are remarkably committed to not answering questions. Ryan was quiet again. Then he said, maybe I have always been nice to you. You just never noticed. The words settled between us. I searched for something sarcastic and found nothing. That was becoming alarmingly common. Ryan, what? Were we ever actually enemies? His expression softened. I never thought we were. My stomach performed a small, deeply unprofessional somersault. Before I could answer, the heater clicked back to life. Warm air began flowing into the room. Our excuse for sitting closer had officially disappeared. Neither of us moved. Then why did you let me believe we were? I asked. Ryan looked at the heater as warm air began filling the room again, apparently hoping modern climate control might rescue him from the conversation. It did not. I waited. He sighed. Because by the time I realized you genuinely disliked me, correcting you felt impossible. You present million-dollar campaigns to rooms full of executives. That is work. And this is. His eyes returned to mine. Not work. 2 words. Somehow they landed with more weight than an entire presentation. I glanced at my phone mostly because I needed somewhere else to look. The screen read 2:17 in the morning. Suddenly, I remembered exactly how this conversation had started, hours in the future from the version of myself who had walked into this room believing Ryan Callahan was merely an occupational hazard. Do not make this weird, Ryan said quietly. I looked up. You are telling the wrong person. Weird is my primary skill set. His smile appeared, but disappeared almost immediately. Ethan, there is something I should have told you months ago. There it was. The sentence from earlier. Only now I understood that whatever came next had been waiting long before the storm, the canceled flight, or this ridiculous bed. That still sounds ominous. It is not. Still what ominous people say. Ryan drew a slow breath. After you left that meeting last spring, Marshall said keeping you on the account was a risk. He wanted me to take over your campaign. I sat very still. You never told me that. I know. What did you say? No. I blinked. Just no. There were additional words. Were any of them hostile, Parsley? That earned the smallest laugh. No. I told him the campaign worked because it sounded like you. If he replaced you with me, he would get something polished and completely wrong. My throat tightened unexpectedly. That is almost insulting. You are welcome. So you convinced him to keep me? I convinced him to let the work prove itself. Ryan looked down at his hands. And it did. I thought about everything that followed. The campaign succeeding. The client renewing. Me celebrating with everyone except Ryan because I had been convinced he wanted credit for himself. Why did you never tell me? Because I did not do it so you would owe me something. Then why? He hesitated again. Ryan Callahan, undefeated champion of conference rooms, suddenly unable to look directly at me. Because I cared what happened to you. My heartbeat seemed embarrassingly loud. I tried to rescue myself with humor. You care about everyone on the team. Not like that. The joke disappeared before reaching my mouth. Ryan finally met my eyes. That was the problem. The heater hummed. Snow whispered against the window. The remaining pillow between us suddenly looked less like a boundary and more like evidence of how hard I had been trying not to understand something. Ryan, I said carefully, what exactly are you saying? He swallowed. I am saying I noticed the coffee you ordered because I was usually standing behind you when you ordered it. I remembered Denver because I remember most things you tell me. I knew your phone battery was dying because I pay attention when you are around. My chest felt strangely light. Why? Ryan gave me a look that was almost amused, almost terrified. Ethan, you are a smart man. Please do not make me create a slide deck for this. And suddenly, for the first time in 8 months, I wondered whether I had misunderstood everything. I stared at him long enough for the silence to become its own participant in the conversation. I am going to need the slide deck, I finally said. Ryan laughed, but there was nervousness underneath it now, and that might have been the strangest thing I had witnessed all night. I had seen Ryan handle impossible deadlines without blinking. Apparently, I was more frightening than a room full of executives. Forget I said anything, he murmured. Absolutely not. You cannot spend 8 months being mysterious, casually rearrange my entire understanding of our relationship, and then request deletion. Our relationship. Professional. Relationship. Right. The way he said it made me immediately regret adding the word professional. I looked toward the ceiling, searching for assistance from a universe that had already canceled my flight, trapped me in a hotel, and apparently decided emotional confusion was complimentary. Nothing. Typical. So I did the dangerous thing. I started remembering. Ryan bringing me coffee before a 7 in the morning client meeting. Ryan saving the seat beside him at the company holiday dinner and pretending it was accidental. Ryan sending me notes after presentations that always started brutally practical and ended with something encouraging. Ryan noticing when I stopped talking during meetings and quietly asking afterward if I was all right. I had categorized every moment as competition, coincidence, or Ryan being irritatingly observant. Now those categories were collapsing. Oh, I said. Ryan raised an eyebrow. That sounds concerning. I am reviewing evidence. Should I call an attorney? Possibly. I turned toward him. The coffee in Seattle. What about it? You brought me the exact order I like. You had an early meeting. The Christmas party. Ryan immediately looked suspicious. What about it? You saved me a seat. There were limited chairs. There were 40 chairs. 38. That correction somehow makes this worse. His mouth twitched. Another memory arrived. And when I had that awful client call in June, you stayed at the office until I finished. We had work. Your work was done. Ryan went quiet. I pointed at him. See? That face. That is the face of a man caught by historical evidence. You are enjoying this too much. I have spent 8 months thinking you were plotting my professional destruction. Allow me a moment. But beneath the jokes, something warmer was unfolding, and I did not know what to do with it. Because if Ryan had never hated me, then I had to reconsider why I had spent so much energy noticing him. His expressions, his habits, the way he rolled his sleeves before difficult meetings, the fact that he called his mother every Sunday, his ridiculous hatred of cilantro. People did not usually memorize that much. About people they could not stand. That realization was deeply inconvenient. I shifted beneath the blanket, and my elbow nudged the last pillow between us. It slid slowly toward the edge of the mattress and dropped to the carpet. Neither of us reached for it. Ryan glanced down, then at me. Your border is gone. Budget cuts. He smiled. We were closer now, with nothing dividing the middle of the bed except empty space. I should have moved away. Instead, I stayed exactly where I was. Ryan. Yeah. I think I might have misunderstood more than just that meeting. His expression softened. What else? I looked at him, suddenly aware that answering honestly might change everything. I am still reviewing the evidence. I woke up because something was wrong. Not dangerous wrong. Worse, comfortable wrong. For several peaceful seconds, I had no idea where I was. The room was dim, the heater hummed steadily, and early morning light had begun turning the curtains gray. I was warm, suspiciously warm. Then I realized my head was resting against Ryan's shoulder. My entire body went rigid. This was not part of the agreement. There had been borders, policies, infrastructure. Apparently, sometime after our conversation, I had fallen asleep and personally violated every international treaty I had established. Ryan was still asleep beside me, his breathing slow and even, one arm resting loosely above the blanket near mine. Nothing inappropriate had happened. Somehow that made the moment more alarming, because it felt ordinary. Easy. Like waking up beside Ryan was something my brain had accepted without consulting me. I carefully lifted my head. Ryan stirred. His eyes opened. He looked at me. I looked at him. "Morning," he said, voice rough with sleep. "No." He blinked. "No. This did not happen." Ryan glanced at the empty space where my pillow wall had once defended civilization. "I think there is evidence. Circumstantial evidence. Your head was on my shoulder." Allegedly. A smile threatened at the corner of his mouth. "Do you always argue before coffee?" "I am not arguing. I am establishing reasonable doubt." I moved back to my side so quickly that I nearly took the blanket with me. Ryan sat up and rubbed a hand over his face. "Relax, Ethan. You fell asleep. I know. That is generally considered normal at night." "Not like that." The smile disappeared. I immediately wished I could retrieve the words. Ryan looked toward the window. "Right. One word. Quiet. Careful." Suddenly the room felt colder, even though the heater was working perfectly. "I did not mean." I started. "It is fine. You keep saying things are fine when they are clearly participating in a different emotional category." He stood and reached for his suitcase. "We should get ready. The airline says our flight is scheduled for 10:20. There it was. Office Ryan. Calm voice. Efficient movements. Invisible walls sliding back into place. 20 minutes later, he was dressed and checking the weather while I stood near the coffee maker pretending powdered creamer required my full intellectual attention. I wanted to ask about last night, about what he had almost admitted, about what I had almost understood. Instead, I said, "Do you want coffee?" "Already ordered some downstairs." "Of course you did." Silence. Terrible, polite silence. We packed and left room 417 looking almost exactly as we had found it, except for 3 pillows scattered across the floor like casualties of my failed emotional defense system. In the elevator, Ryan stood beside me without teasing me once. I discovered I hated that more than the teasing. At breakfast, he handed me a coffee. Black. No sugar. "Exactly right." "Thanks," I said. Sure. Not "you are welcome." Not some irritating comment about my caffeine dependence. Just sure. I watched him check our boarding passes. Maybe I had imagined the meaning behind everything he said last night. Maybe Ryan had opened a door and my panic had slammed it closed before either of us understood what was on the other side. "Ryan," I said. His phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and something in his expression changed. "I need to take this." He stepped away toward the lobby windows. I tried not to listen. I genuinely tried. Then his voice carried across the quiet space. "No," he said softly. I have not told him yet. My hand tightened around the coffee cup. Ryan paused, listening. Then he said the sentence that made every question from last night return at once. "I will tell him when we get back to Boston." I stared at Ryan across the hotel lobby while my brain immediately selected the worst possible interpretation and promoted it to fact. He had not told him yet. He would tell him when we got back to Boston. Perfect. Wonderful. Apparently one canceled flight was not enough chaos for 24 hours. Now I had a mysterious him. Ryan ended the call and returned to the table. "Everything okay?" I asked, aiming for casual and landing somewhere near suspicious detective. "Yeah." He picked up his coffee. "My sister." That should have helped. It did not. "What have you not told him?" Ryan froze for half a second. "You heard that. You were approximately 20 feet away, not in another state." "Ethan, is it about work?" His expression closed slightly. There. My anxiety grabbed that tiny change and built an entire office drama around it. "Are you leaving the team?" "What?" "Or transferring accounts? Is that what you were telling someone when we get back?" Ryan set down his cup. "Why would you think that?" "Because last night you told me you had something complicated to say. This morning everything became painfully polite, and now you are having secret conversations before breakfast." "It was not secret. You walked away. Because normal people do not take personal calls at the breakfast table. You have clearly overestimated my familiarity with normal people." Ryan almost smiled, but stopped himself. "This is not the place to discuss it." My stomach sank. That sounds extremely reassuring. "Ethan, please do not turn one sentence into a disaster before I can explain it." I am not. I absolutely was. The shuttle arrived 10 minutes later, and the ride back to the airport felt twice as long as the trip to the hotel. Ryan sat beside me, close enough that our coat sleeves occasionally brushed when the shuttle turned. Neither of us mentioned it. At the terminal, the departure board finally showed our flight as on time. Travelers moved around us with coffee cups and rolling suitcases while announcements echoed overhead. Normal morning. Normal airport. Nothing normal inside my head. Ryan checked our gate. We have about 40 minutes. Great. You sound disappointed. I am thrilled. This is my thrilled voice. Your thrilled voice sounds exactly like your defensive voice. I looked at him. Maybe because I do not know what happens when we land. Ryan's expression softened. We go home. And Monday, we go to work. And we pretend last night never happened? He was quiet. That silence answered too many questions, and none of them correctly. Got it, I said. Ethan, that is not what I meant. You did not mean anything. That is sort of the problem. Boarding began before he could answer. People stood and formed the usual unnecessary line 20 minutes before their groups were called. I grabbed my bag. Ryan caught up beside me. You keep doing this. Doing what? Deciding what I think before asking me. I asked you, and then answered for me. That stopped me. Ryan lowered his voice. Last night I told you that you were wrong about me for 8 months. This morning you are doing the exact same thing again. I looked away because eye contact suddenly felt unfair. Then tell me what I am getting wrong. He drew a breath, but my phone buzzed before he could answer. A message from our coworker Maya appeared on the screen. I almost ignored it. Then I saw Ryan's name. Ethan, random question. Did Ryan ever tell you why he turned down New York? I read it twice. Then a third time. I looked up at him. What did you turn down in New York? For the first time all morning, Ryan had absolutely nothing to say. What did you turn down in New York? I asked again. Ryan looked from my phone to my face, and for once there was no polished answer waiting behind his eyes. Around us, passengers shuffled toward the gate, while an announcement requested families with small children to board first. Somehow the entire airport kept functioning while my understanding of Ryan Callahan underwent another complete renovation. A position, he said finally. That is impressively vague. Creative director. I stared at him. Creative director? Yes. In New York? That is generally where New York positions are located. Do not become funny now. I am having a crisis. His mouth twitched despite himself. I looked back at Maya's message. When? 3 weeks ago. That stopped me. 3 weeks. Before Chicago. Before the storm. Before room 417. Before one missing pillow turned my emotional life into an unsupervised science experiment. Why did you turn it down? Ryan adjusted the strap of his carry-on. There were several reasons. Name one. I like Boston. You complain about Boston traffic twice a week. That does not mean I want to leave. Another reason. He looked toward the gate. Ethan. Another reason. Boarding group 2 was called. Neither of us moved. Finally, Ryan exhaled. You. One word. And every sound around me seemed to fade behind it. Me? You asked. I was expecting something involving salary negotiations. There were salary negotiations. Ryan. He rubbed a hand over the back of his neck. They wanted me to start immediately. I knew taking it meant leaving the team, leaving Boston, and probably seeing you twice a year at company meetings. I forgot how sarcasm worked. So you stayed because of me? Not only because of you, but partly. He met my eyes. Mostly. My heart did something inconvenient again. Then who were you talking about on the phone? Ryan stared at me for a second before understanding. You. What? I was talking to my sister about you. I nearly dropped my boarding pass. You said you had not told him yet. Yes. I am him. Congratulations. Mystery solved. Do not congratulate me. I have been mentally preparing for your resignation for 20 minutes. Ryan laughed, and this time I could not even resent it. What were you going to tell me in Boston? His expression grew serious. What I should have told you last night. You told me plenty last night. Not enough. Another boarding group was called. The line shortened. Ryan glanced at it, then back at me. My sister has known about you for almost a year. I blinked. Your sister knows who I am? Unfortunately, she knows far too much about you. How much is far too much? She knows about the grilled cheese video. I covered my face briefly. I need a new identity. She thinks you are funny. Your sister has excellent judgment. Ryan smiled, but his eyes remained careful. When New York offered me the job, she asked whether I was really willing to leave without ever telling you how I felt. My hands went still around my phone. And what did you say? I said there was nothing to tell because you could barely tolerate me. That was before I discovered you had been secretly reasonable this entire time. Secretly reasonable? Do not ruin this. Ryan stepped slightly closer, still leaving enough space for me to choose whether to close it. Ethan, the hotel did not make me notice you. The storm did not make me care about you. I turned down New York before any of this happened. His voice softened. Last night only made it harder to keep pretending that was not the reason. The gate agent announced final boarding for our group. Ryan looked toward the line. We should go. He started walking. I stayed where I was. Because suddenly the important question was no longer whether Ryan wanted to leave Boston. It was whether I was going to let us board that plane without finally telling him I wanted him to stay. I watched Ryan walk toward the gate for exactly 4 seconds before my brain finally stopped holding meetings and made a decision. Ryan. He turned. I crossed the distance between us so quickly that the wheels of my carry-on protested across the tile. You offered me half your bed, I said. Ryan blinked. That is your opening argument. I am working under time pressure. The gate agent announced that boarding would close shortly. Ryan glanced toward her. Ethan, we should probably get on the plane. No, not yet. His expression changed. He became completely still. I took a breath. You offered me half your bed when you thought I hated you. You gave me your charger. You remembered how cold I keep hotel rooms. You defended my campaign when I was not even there to know about it. You turned down New York. Ethan, I am not finished. That is becoming clear. And apparently your sister knows about my terrible late-night video habits, which is a separate violation we'll discuss later. He smiled. Good. I needed that smile. It made the next part slightly less terrifying. I spent 8 months thinking you were the problem, I said. Then one night happened, and now I have to consider the deeply upsetting possibility that I was an idiot. I would not use that word. I would. It is efficient. Ryan stepped closer. What are you saying? There it was. No joke could answer it for me. No misunderstanding could hide it anymore. I am saying I noticed you too. His eyes searched mine. You did. I know how you take your coffee. I know you call your mother every Sunday. I know you hate cilantro with an intensity normally reserved for actual enemies. I know you roll your sleeves up when you are nervous before a presentation, even though you pretend you are never nervous. Ryan looked genuinely surprised. You noticed that? Apparently, I have been conducting my own research project while insisting I could not stand you. A quiet laugh escaped him. I felt some of the pressure in my chest loosen. So what happens now? He asked. I was hoping the smart one had a plan. You called me unbearable yesterday. People grow. In 12 hours? I am extremely adaptable. Ryan smiled, but there was still uncertainty behind it. I do not want you saying this because we got stuck together for one night. I am not. I stepped closer, leaving almost no distance between us. That room did not create anything. It just made it impossible for me to keep misunderstanding it. His expression softened. You are sure? No. I am terrified. That is reassuring. But I am sure I do not want to go back to pretending. Ryan nodded slowly. Neither do I. I looked at him. Good. Because I want the other half too. He laughed. The other half of what? The bed. The coffee runs. The annoying meetings. Whatever comes next. For once, Ryan Callahan had no clever response. So I closed the final few inches and kissed him. It was brief, gentle, and somehow quieter than every argument we had ever had. When we separated, Ryan was smiling. Worst hotel decision of my life, he murmured. Finding one room. Offering you half the bed. I picked up my carry-on. Too late. No refunds. The gate agent called our names. Ryan reached for my hand, hesitated, then let me decide. I looked down at the space between us. Less than a day earlier, I had built a wall out of pillows to preserve it. This time, I closed the distance myself and took his hand. Come on, I said. We have a flight to catch. 3 months later, Ryan and I were standing in another hotel lobby when the woman behind the front desk gave us an apologetic smile and said, I am so sorry, gentlemen. We only have one room left, and it has one king-size bed. I looked at Ryan. Ryan looked at me. Somewhere in the universe, fate apparently had one joke and remained extremely committed to it. We can find another hotel, Ryan said with suspicious innocence. Can we? I asked. Probably. Do you want to? His expression cracked first. Not particularly. The woman behind the desk glanced between us, clearly wondering why 2 grown men were behaving like she had presented them with a complicated legal puzzle. I slid my credit card across the counter. We will take it. Ryan picked up our bags. Very brave of you. I have experience. You once built a pillow wall. That was before I understood the geopolitical situation. The elevator carried us upstairs, and this time the silence between us was easy. A lot had changed in 3 months. We had learned that dating a coworker required boundaries, communication, and an impressive ability to keep straight faces during Monday meetings. We had also learned that Ryan cooked excellent pancakes. I was incapable of assembling furniture without becoming personally offended by the instructions, and neither of us was nearly as mysterious as we had once imagined. Ryan still corrected my commas. I still sent him ridiculous videos after midnight. He still remembered details I forgot telling him. The difference was that now I noticed him noticing. Our room was at the end of the hallway. Ryan opened the door, and there it was. One enormous bed beneath a perfectly unnecessary collection of decorative pillows. He pointed toward them. Plenty of construction material. Do not tempt me. Should I request additional pillows for border security? Absolutely not. I dropped my bag beside the dresser and claimed the center of the mattress before Ryan had even removed his coat. He stared at me. You realize you are occupying considerably more than half. Territorial expansion. I was promised half. Terms have changed. Ryan folded his arms. I would like to renegotiate. I lifted the edge of the blanket. Come negotiate. He laughed and sat beside me, and the mattress dipped in that familiar way that once would have made me painfully aware of every inch between us. Now I simply leaned my shoulder against his. For a moment, neither of us spoke. City lights glowed beyond the window, and somewhere below, traffic moved through the cold evening. Ryan looked around the room. You know, I almost did not offer you that bed. Really, I thought you would rather sleep at the airport than share a room with me. At the time, that was accurate. Good to know. I smiled. But you offered anyway. I did. Why? He gave me the same look he had given me that first night when I asked why he noticed so much about me. Only this time, there was no hesitation. Because even when you could not stand me, I still wanted to make sure you were okay. My chest warmed in the quiet, familiar way I had finally stopped trying to explain away. I rested my head against his shoulder. For the record, I can stand you now. That might be the most romantic thing you have ever said. Do not get emotional. Would not dream of it. I glanced toward the chair by the window. One decorative pillow had fallen there when I climbed onto the bed. 3 months earlier, I would have picked it up and placed it carefully between us. This time, I left it exactly where it was. Ryan reached for my hand. I laced my fingers through his and smiled. The first time we shared a room, I had spent the night measuring the distance between us. Now there was no distance left to measure. Thank you so much for visiting our channel and spending your time with us. We truly appreciate every view, every comment, and every moment you share with our stories. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like to support our channel. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming videos. Your support means the world to us and motivates us to keep creating more high-quality stories for you. Thank you for being part of our community, and we'll see you in the next video.